What's going on, people? Welcome back to another opposition preview. This week, I'm joined by Connor from the Toffee Blues to look ahead to the game on Sunday against Everton. As always, if you do enjoy the show, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you're new here to not miss out on future content. Connor, Everton this season, this is going to be exciting, chat, because honestly, we can start in so many different areas. But let's just start with general thoughts on your season so far. You're sitting 12th in the league. You got rid of your director of football recently. There's been calls about Rafa Benitez getting sacked, but you've only got your first win in 2 months and you're still 12th in it. Like, it is so confusing talking about Everton because maybe the Premier League is tight. But what is your general feeling going into this game? It must be tiring for you just talking about Everton week in, week out.
Nervous, but there's bigger, like it's a weird place at the minute. Like you want to win every game, you want to do well, but it's sort of a position where like there's bigger issues at play. So even if we won at the weekend, or we beat Arsenal, for example, it doesn't sort of hide the low problems at board level. Bill Kenwright, Farhad Mashiri, the owner, has sort of sacked the director of football, like you said. There's rumours that we could get anyone in. There's meant to be a streamlining of the club. It's just a mess. And like obviously football-wise, you want to win every game, but the issues run a lot deeper than results on the field.
Yeah. So there was a walkout in the Arsenal game. I didn't actually watch the game. I watched the highlights of it, but it was planned beforehand. As Everton fans, what is your realistic expectations? What is it that you guys done a walkout? Is it just the frustration with the owners? Is it that you want trophies? Like, what are your expectations?
I mean, the walkout, for anyone who saw it, didn't actually go as well as the organisers had planned. I think a little bit of that, though, was we were winning. We weren't winning, but we were like in it for most of the game. Their goal hadn't gone in yet. If their goal had gone in by then, maybe a couple more would have joined in. But it was very, it might sound biased, but we were the better team during that point, and we looked like we were constantly a threat. So you're always going to struggle to get people to leave a stadium. And watching football's not cheap, you know what I mean? If you brought your season ticket holder, again, it's not cheap, but you've got, plenty more games to go to. But if you've brought your one-off ticket to go watch them, it's a little bit tough if you take, or it's a special occasion and you take somebody special, child or whatever for their birthdays or whatever, you can't, it does leave them in a tough spot. But I think the protest, the walkout was aimed at board level. Basically, the fan base sort of feel like we're tired of mediocrity. It's aimed at Marcel Brands, who's now gone. It was aimed at him. It was aimed at Bill Kenwright, who's the chairman and was the owner and has been at the club for years now. It was aimed at Farhad Mashiri, not to get him out, but to make, sort of sort it out, basically, because we wouldn't want to. It's a tough spot with Farhad Mashiri. He's too, my personal opinion is he's too involved. I wish he'd just finance it, but leave the decisions of football to football people. He doesn't. But then if I said Farhad Mashiri out, people would be going, he's building you a new stadium, But yeah, I think fans are just a bit annoyed, and we've spent over 500 million. When we were
crazy.
Like, before him, all we were ever known as is plucky Everton, Moyes, underdog Everton. They really do well. He was getting us 6th place finishes. Now that'd be Europa Conference or Europa League. You'd be happy with that. And I think the mind-boggling bit is we've now got this billionaire owner that we were dying out for because we want to, grow as a club. We want to get back to the success of the 80s. And we've gone backwards. Obviously, the league improves year on year as well, and the league is a lot more competitive than it was 10 years ago. But still, when you're throwing, half £1 billion about, you expect to see, not always trophy. An FA Cup would be nice, a League Cup would be nice, but you expect to get on the top 10 at least. I think that's a realistic expectation for the money we've been throwing about.
Teams have the problems with their owners not spending money. Your problem is not that. You are spending money, but when you look at some of the signings that you've had and some of the managers you've had, it seems like there's no real strategy in place. And I think that might be the reason why you have been struggling to push into the top 10. Because, for example, you bring in Rafa Benitez, he's a different manager to Ancelotti. Ancelotti is a different manager to Marco Silva. Like, they have different philosophies, and it makes it ever so harder. And you brought in so many players, so many different names, overspent on a couple players. I as a fan, I'll be annoyed as well. It's like, have a plan in place, get a manager in and back him. But talking about your manager right now, Rafa Benitez. Look, when he first joined Everton, if you're a football fan, you know Rafa Benitez at Liverpool, and you know Everton and Liverpool they just don't get along. Yeah. And I personally, it was going to be very difficult for him to stay at the job because of his past with Liverpool. But do you think there will ever be a turning point, or what does Benitez need to do for you guys to say, all right, we're on your side now? Or do you think that will never happen due to his past?
I mean, this was the problem. When he was hired, it divided the fan base in the summer. You obviously had the protests and the bed sheets. And then that sort of went in his favour, actually, because a lot of the fan base were like, we're not having, us be badly represented like that. Then it was the get behind the manager mentality. And that was brilliant. But he was always, and we said this on our channel, he was always 3 bad losses away from people wanting him out. He will never be accepted unless, even if he won us an FA Cup, I think then there'd still be a little bit of tint on it. I think he'd win over majority, but there'll still be some staunch Everton fans that won't. But since then, he's done nothing to help his, in my opinion anyway, some Everton fans will still be happy with him, but he's done nothing to help himself with the fans. He's, during the 2-month no win, we're out of the FA Cup, by the way, by the League Cup by QPR, which is embarrassing enough. But since then, he was like coming out with silly stuff like, I know the city, brilliant. So do most Scousers. That doesn't mean we should hire the bus drivers around Liverpool to say no the city. That means nothing to fans. We run more, which again, you will run more if you chase the ball. That's pretty logical. If a team's got the ball most of the time, you will be running more than the other team. And it's just and I get the feeling he's disruptive higher up. Obviously, Marcel Brands has left, and I don't think that was Farhad Moshiri from the reports from The Athletic and stuff. We don't have Seamus Coleman is our only right back other than John Joe Kenny, and supposedly Brands wanted Dumfries and Livramento at Southampton. Apparently, Livramento was quite close. Benitez said no, I don't want either of them. They're not experienced enough. Yeah, I know. Mental. Marcel Brands didn't want Benitez. He wanted a more exciting manager. He wanted Potter. He felt like he was undermined when we went with Benitez. And since then, they've not worked well together. So he's gone. The head of medical has gone because Benitez was saying clear Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Suppose, again, this is from The Athletic and hearsay, but again, he was like, no, and he went as well. And he's now upsetting players. Supposedly, there's players that aren't happy with the style of play that he's providing. It thinks they're holding them back creatively. There's rumours that's Luca Dean because he was dropped against Arsenal and wasn't injured. He was just dropped. And he even confirmed that on Instagram. He said, I was dropped by the manager. I'm not injured. That's football. So there's a feeling and worry now between fans that not only are we not getting the results on the field and we got battered in the derby, but he's now on his way to, upsetting a lot of people. There's rumours that we're giving him free rein in the transfer window. Some of the players we've rumoured to be signing are Aaron Ramsey's, Longstaff, Isco was one, Hazard. They're all players that were good. And, it sounds silly to say that then, but 5 years ago, you'd be landed with some of those players, not Longstaff. You'd be landed with like Hazard and that. They're now older, going to come on big contracts. We're probably going to give them 2 to 3 years because, they'll want that. And that's the problem with Everton. Too many players past it, but are sitting there and on a good wage. And there's no fight. And also it leads to the point of, and I don't think he'll last very long. If we do sack him and you've given free rein, the next manager is going to have to deal with all of his own players, sort of thing. So, like, if we get someone who's a different style to Benitez, say now, we're not going to get him. But for example, we got like Ten Hag, who plays like more total football. None of the players that Benitez is rumoured to be wanting to sign are available for that ability. He plays defensive football, hits on the break. If it leaves us to a point where we'd have to get more managers like that, I guess, because the players he's going to sign, like Rondon, for example, he's trusted him. He was always okay at Newcastle 4 years ago. Not now.
Exactly. I think that's the problem. And that is a massive problem. That is a massive problem because with an aging squad and with players on high contracts, it's going to be very hard to get rid of them. And it causes, you're going to have injuries. Forget about the wages. These players, the older they get, the more prone they are to injuries. I mean, we've had that at Palace under Roy Hodgson where we had a experienced squad, but then towards the end of the season, you picked up injuries. You didn't have the legs to run as fast as they can. It got way more difficult, and the problem becomes bigger than the manager. And you talked about the style of play there. Would you guys be happy with a manager like Rafa Benitez because his tactics is a bit of a throwback. It's not modern football. It's low block, hit them on the counter attack. Would you be happy with that style of football if he got you the results?
I mean, yeah, I guess that's the hindsight of 2020, isn't it? You know, if a manager's winning, I will say this though: we had Sam Allardyce at the club for a brief period, and his style of football is somewhat similar. Some people liked it. I know a couple of people who do stuff on the channel who quite like defensive football. For me, it's not my personal. I quite like the high pressing, direct style of play that you see the likes of, unfortunately, Jurgen Klopp play, where they press, they win the ball high, and they're directing it. They don't mess about. I prefer that much more to watching City, who tend to play around with the ball a little bit more. So I prefer that sort of gegenpressing thing, just because it's more exciting as a fan to watch. But I understand that if you don't have the team, you won't get the results with that, and also it doesn't always work. In the people talk about DNAs of the club, it won't always work at certain clubs, and I'm accepting for that. It's not my cup of tea. I think if you got the results, though, I could swallow it. But the main problem is we talk about him, being defensive, and we've been leaking in goals, quite a bit
It doesn't help.
over the season. I can't remember when clean sheets don't come very often at Everton, and if you hire a manager who's got a reputation for being defensively sound, sometimes when you watch us, you think, Watford, for example, all over the place in that loss.
Yeah.
Corner routines, not so bad now. Against Arsenal, they weren't too bad, but we were absolutely, the zonal marking wasn't working. He was insisting on it. The problem with him is he's quite stubborn. We don't have a number 10 at the club, really. And he's insisting on playing a 4-4-1-1. Like when Calvert-Lewin's back, Richarlison will play there, and I think that's probably better. But for now, he's insisting on it and putting Demarai Gray there. Demarai Gray's a lot better out on the wings where he can use the pace he has. He won't put an extra man in midfield. We've been overrun in midfield a couple of times this season. Alan and Decore can only do so much. A prime example was Arsenal. He brought on Andre Gomez and we improved massively. And he's done it a couple of times. Just start with the third man in midfield. You know that with being overrun, don't be stubborn. Don't I quite like him to tinker a little bit more.
Yeah, 100% agree. So talking about Demarai Gray in particular, I want to move on to the players now. Look, your summer signings this season, when you're looking at them, they weren't that exciting. You got Andros Townsend after he released. How much did he actually spend? I remember you spending $2 million on Demarai Gray, but Rondon was free. Townsend was free. Who else did he bring in? Demarai Gray. Rondon was, Begovic, he was free. So you barely spent any money on these players, but they're well-experienced players. But Demarai Gray, I think he's up there for signing of the season, considering the money that you spent on him. How would you describe him as a player for those who haven't watched Everton so far this season?
Exciting, really exciting. He's something that Everton have missed, and I know a lot of fans will, echo this. The amount of times we watched players down the wings and we were like, we're crying out for a bit of pace, someone to, beat the man, run to the byline. And that's what Demarai Gray does. He's very quick. He's very intelligent. And as, the Arsenal game proved, he's also got a really good shot. And obviously his goal that came off the post was fantastic, but he could have very easily scored his first one that assisted Richarlison. That one hit the bar and bounced into Richarlison. That could have easily beat Ramsdale. So he's just been really good for the money we've spent. And it was a bit of a weird summer because obviously Everton are known for flying money around, and financial fair play has sort of stopped us from doing that. But he's a really good signing, and I think it's a really good thing for his career. I think once he went out to Leverkusen, he didn't do very much there. He went to Leicester, didn't really do much there. There was sort of at 25, I think people were a little bit worried his career was probably, maybe he was going to go to the championship style player. So he's really, persevered and tried to stamp his claim. I think he's got as much to prove, and he sees this as his opportunity.
Yeah. And then finally, your score predictions. This is the exciting part. Look, the way you described it, as a Palace fan, just watching and listening to this as well, I would be like, wow, we've actually got a chance. You talked about set pieces, you talked about struggling in midfield, and if we can exploit them areas, which we can if we put the right personnel there, then it can be a very good game for us. But of course, I doubt it will go as the way that you put it because it's Palace, and God knows what will happen from here to Sunday. Some player might be injured, or so I don't know. Something could happen. Patrick Vieira might be absent again. But in terms of score prediction, what do you expect from this game? Do you think you guys can come to Selhurst Park and get a win? Surely you do. You have to back the boys.
I was going to say, I want to back them. My heart's saying like 2-1. Realistically, I think it'll be 1-1.
1-0.
I think we've got no clean sheet. I think Richarlison will score. I think he's on form. And against Arsenal, he looked like he had that hunger back. I think he'll get on the score sheet.
Yeah. I'm going to go 4. I have to back my boys. I have to go 2-1. We've lost 3 games in a row. And in this game, in the 3 games that we lost, we have missed a key player in Joachim Andersen. And fingers crossed in this game, he should be back. And his ball's over the top from, in the defense and just being a ball-playing defender. We've significantly missed that. And I feel like Patrick Vieira might change in midfield as well, as he hasn't worked out. And we've got weak rest as well to work on the areas that we need to improve on. So is that Selhurst Park? I'm going to go 2-1 Palace. Not going to be easy. As you said, I think Richarlison is going to be on a score sheet, but we need to get a win. We've lost 3 games in a row. I know you guys have won the game, which probably plays into our hands because you had to win somewhere and you got that win on Monday. So hopefully that is the only win that you have this week. But let us know what you guys think about your score predictions and thoughts on the game. Leave down your comments down below and we'll be trying to get back to you as soon as possible. And make sure to check out the Toffee Blues where I'll be going on there and giving my preview as well. And that's it for today. And until next time, up the Palace.